Morning. G'day, Gerri. How's it going?
Hello. Now, guess what, Imi? I've had
What?
some adventures.
Oh, that's it. That's what you're like, yes?
Yes.
Adventures. All
So
right, what's happened?
adventures, which they
Yeah.
are connected.
Uh-huh.
Unfortunately, they are connected to
Yeah.
what we were talking about before and what we
Oh,
were
yes.
previously
Yeah, recap.
discussing.
Okay. Quick,
Mm,
quick re
was difficult
go.
things when you practice
Yes.
psychology.
Yeah.
And we were particularly focusing around complaints, but,
Yeah.
things that go wrong. And
Yeah.
both of my adventures were connected to this theme, which is good and bad. We will try
Mm-hmm.
and find the good. So
Yeah.
what sparked
Oh, dear. Just before you drop
this? What the
yes.
stimulus was, I was thinking about my clients who have done really well in lockdown,
Yeah.
who exemplify personal growth and functional coping. And
Wow.
yes, there are a couple who've done really well. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this is not, of course, to say that there's anything wrong with my coping. The 300 recorded episodes of House Hunters
House Hunters
International,
International. Yes. Right.
and the 30-year back catalogue of Law and Order.
Yeah. Yeah, you're all over that, Gerri. And we are having some tech
These
issues
things
today.
aren't going to watch themselves, Jimmy. Yeah.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I bet we're having tech issues. We had tech
Wow.
issues in my adventures as well, which
Okay.
was
Well,
a
plow on.
shame.
I'll just fill in if we lose you for a bit. We'll just have to roll with it like you do in lockdown, all right?
So what's happened is I thought to myself, the clients who are doing well, there's two factors. This was my reflection. One factor is that they have
Oh, dear.
stuff going on, right?
Yep.
So some degree of keeping busy, and practitioner would say they're moving towards valued living. And they also have that other dimension of momentum or moving forward, or new things are happening, or good things are happening. So I thought, right, how can I get a bit of that in my life?
Yeah, let's get a bit of that. Yeah.
The answer was, of course, a webinar.
Gerri.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll roll with it. So you thought webinar.
You're thinking that the answer wasn't a webinar. But the answer was a webinar.
What, was it? Okay.
Yes.
What right? On psychedelic mushrooms as the potential therapeutic approach, or something less exciting than that?
It was on treatment failures.
Oh, guys, so brave of us. Look at our failures now. Aren't we brave? We're starting to have a bit of self-reflection and go into the mistakes. Good. Okay,
yes. It was really valuable training. It was put on by a branch of the APS, the southwestern branch of a major city. Everyone was so nice.
So they're quite nice.
Yeah, it was truly lovely. I wasn't there for their secret branch meeting. I just joined.
You need a badge and a password and a handshake for that. But okay.
And at that time I was very webinar focused. So,
yes, I'm sure. Sure you were.
So that was one idea to get some personal growth and momentum and move forward.
Good work, Gerri. Outstanding work. Yes.
Which paradoxically involved reflection on what we were talking about, what goes wrong, problems.
Yeah, what buggers up, yeah.
More problems in the therapeutic relationship and in the treatment, as opposed to the external problems that we were talking about, the real stresses that come from outside.
Yes, righto. Bringing that online.
But there was something else in me.
Yeah,
I went for a job interview.
You didn't? You did?
Yes.
You've stepped out? Oh, hello. What happened?
It was on Zoom and my makeup looked lovely.
Well, that's the main thing.
My framing and lighting, which was all irrelevant because the tech went down and we had to do it over the phone.
Oh, well, good recovery. That's all right. Things don't always go to plan, but if we're moving in a general direction, we'll sort of problem solve our way to get there. So good job. Well done.
It's good that you're being encouraging
positive.
because it did all result in failure and humiliation.
Oh, no, Gerri. Bugger. Okay, well, what happened? Tell me anyway, and I'll have a quick drink.
I think I could have lost them when I referred to myself as late career and almost dead.
Oh dear, you've let a bit of your shadow slipped out a bit there. Difficult. Not so.
Want someone that was almost dead, although the almost dead, don't cause a lot of problems.
Okay. Now, hang on. This is important, right? Because I love that this has come out in a job interview, right? So there's a massive double signal there, Big G.
Well, I didn't refer to myself as crusty.
Crusty. Well, okay. That's on the upside. Yeah. Okay, but there's a big double signal there, Tiger. Like, I'm going for the interview on the one hand, on the other hand, I'm dead and late career and possibly one foot in the grave. That's not interesting.
Yes.
I love it when death comes into the experience. It's important. Something's dying.
The self-sabotage was not as
it's not as
strong
as
you may think.
Okay,
because
sorry.
I did only want 1 day a week, and that didn't meet their needs. So
no, they wanted to flog you. Was it, just quietly, you don't have to name the organisation, of course, but was it a private practice clinic?
Yes and no. Yeah,
okay.
I was going for a job in part of the private practice clinic, and it is a good organisation. It is a bit of a downer on the old upbeat mood and personal growth, because especially in this time where there are so many advertisements for psychologists, where the demand for our skills is so huge, but I will still find a way to be rejected.
Well, you might have been rejected, because I think, and this is a shock to you, Gerri, I know, as eventually in the future would be a business owner, but the bottom line is actually quite important. So, I mean, and some employers in private practice have ridiculous ideas about how much work a psychologist can actually do.
It probably wasn't the case in this scenario.
Okay.
I think really was the 1 day a week. But what was interesting, right, where the learning comes from,
okay, yeah, sure,
is apart from saying I was almost dead, I didn't do as well as one might expect in the interview scenario, despite the fact I had carefully prepared and looked lovely.
Oh, I'm sure you look lovely.
It was actually a really good interview, because it had that aspect of scenarios, and they were very, very keen to know what will you do when things go wrong. So there was lots of describe a situation where you had to do a repair with a client, describe a difficult client and what went wrong. Now, the good news is I was not quite ready for that. I'd sort of prepared in a different direction. I'd kind of prepared in the types of problems the clientele would have. So that was interesting. And I have been to an interview before where they tried to get that kind of problematic scenario going. And I guess that is as close as we can get to a testing of a work situation.
That's a pretty complicated thing to address in an interview, though I understand why it's important, because it assumes a couple of things. It assumes a lot of things. It assumes the reason there was a breach in the therapeutic alliance was more to do with you and rather than some complicated and possibly dangerous behaviour on the part of the client.
Yes,
which can also happen.
It's still the therapist's responsibility to deal with that, and hence, Imi, as I always say, the interconnectedness of all things, why we're essentially evolving to talk more and more about serious
difficult things. Righto.
Now, I did hold back on the humour. I once went to a job interview. Well,
that might have been well advised in the old interview scenario. It's risky to take the jokes in.
Yeah, I know, but you got to care a bit. So,
yeah, well, you want it. It's your style of engagement. So, I see the problem there. Yeah.
Thank you,
all right.
that's a compassionate. But I did hold back in this scenario from my past, where the job interview was held was where the practice was, which is in a big building in the secret city. It's a very beautiful building. There's lots of toilets in there that are very clean
great.
and nice, so you can just nip in if you're having a bit of a shop.
No bladder worries there. Then you've got options.
Yeah,
like Maya in the city,
there's
Maya's got
options on every floor. But there's many psychology practices, and there's a lift. So you've got the scenario: many floors, many nice bathrooms, many.
Gerri, come back.
And the scenario given to me in the interview was you're in a lift with a client, and they say to you, "Would you like to get a coffee now?"
Oh, that's pretty tame, man.
It was pretty tame, and I held back. Tame. I mean, that's basically giving you the opening for a joke.
Oh,
so didn't say, well, who's paying for the coffee?
Oh, ripper!
Can I get soya milk?
Joke. Oh no! Please, not the soy milk.
Of course.
Gee, that's awkward and tricky, and I could see that as being an issue, yeah.
For the record, the correct answer is kind of relationship, or whatever you can say in the elevator. You may just say something nice and brush it off, and then later on address it a bit more in the session. Okay, standard answer there, people. Do not say who's paying for coffee. Do not mention soy milk. Do not mention oat milk. That's not the time.
Oh dear.
Explore your milk needs or your caffeine needs.
It's a good it's tricky. It's a tricky scenario though. Yeah. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know. There's one right answer to that. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
I found in the most recent interview, I found the tricky scenarios really difficult because you got to hold back on anything really painful. It's not as though I'm talking to you where I can talk about complaints or so on.
Yeah,
and
no.
It kind of had to be a bit more sanitized, sort of wrapped up, with a happily ever after ending. And I mean, I'm sure that wasn't implied. I'm sure it would have been okay to talk about if you lost somebody, lost somebody to treatment. I'm not, implying anything else. But that was really, it was really good, and it was exceptionally difficult. I think because my frontal lobe was a little bit impaired. And I had a supervisor who used to say, and this was so useful, that when people are aroused, their frontal lobe capacity goes down. So
that's true. Of course, that's true.
Yeah. So you're nervous in an interview, your frontal lobe doesn't work as well. You may use humour such as, I'm almost dead, and a little bit crusty. Aren't we all?
Maybe, yeah.
So I think people want to talk about problems.
They do. I think we need to. Yeah, I'm not sure. I like your idea of a framework in some ways. I think that scenario of asking you in an interview how you would handle it, that's a relatively tame situation. Running into a client in a lift, like that's not not devastating.
I can't really see anyone getting that one wrong. That one was too easy.
Yeah, that's a pretty tame one. But there are other situations that are way more complicated where the safety of the psychologist concerned is important to consider. It's not as simple as it's all on you. Some of it's like binge it. So, for example, I remember going for an interview or whatever a long time ago at a psych practice, and they wanted me to do after hours. And okay, I understand that's a high turnover time, but they wanted me to do after hours with no one else on site.
Yes.
No, that is just not safe.
Oh, I meant
dude.
no. I'm being emphatic.
No. It's just not, and I could not believe that they would not understand that. And the reason for it, of course, was bottom lines. It was about money.
Yes.
And it was about, we can't afford the expense of a receptionist at that time. That is putting the psychologist in an extremely dangerous position.
Yes, and there's simple ways around it as well, and
like
that
just don't work for them.
Tells you something about them.
It certainly does. That
is that's very clear information.
If they're a boyfriend, you'd be like, next.
Yes, I've got 2 anecdotes here. One anecdote is I was working after hours. I think there may have been another psychologist there. And it was in a private practice, and somebody buzzed to come in. So it was maybe 6 or 7 o'clock at night. There weren't many people around. There wasn't reception staff around. And somebody buzzed to come in for a session. And they said it was their first session, and I welcomed them in to the waiting room. I said, please sit down and make yourself comfortable, because I assumed that they were seeing the other psych. And I think I even got them a glass of water. And sure enough, they were in the wrong place.
Oh, bless. Gerri, isn't that funny? It sort of follows you around, this sort of,
security breach,
situational humour. Oh, bless you.
Should there ever be a conflict with that young man's treating psychologist?
Oh, dear.
He knew where there was comfort and refreshment.
Dear.
And my friend also went for a job interview where they didn't give her the right kind of answers, and in fact refused to acknowledge the problems around seeing people after hours and alone.
It's just unbelievable that would even be considered to be an option. I mean, female GPs have this issue as well. So, you get female GPs obviously work super hard as well, and they sometimes are seeing 4 patients an hour, which is just ridiculous. But anyway, that's what's happening. And of course, with that kind of volume, you're going to get the occasional male client who wants to show you their penis. That's why they've come in. And that is not appropriate, not in a healthcare setting. However, GPs are doing physical assessments, and of course, the penis is part of the male body. That said, there's a context there. They're in there to flash or show off or do something a bit weird. The GPs, that particular problem with GPs is also not as to my understanding or experience, has been very well addressed in the healthcare sector either. So this issue is just not addressed. It's just not. It's just pretended like it's not a problem.
I've got another. This is security. I never even thought of that, Emmy. Security.
Yeah, show their willy. They want to. Yeah.
Security is an external problem that is live and real, and that we should talk about. We speak together a lot about feeling emotionally safe, and I do have a story. A new client was scheduled at 5 p.m. with no reception staff. I think it was even 5 p.m. on a Friday, so I didn't know them. They were male, and I emailed the receptionist, the practice manager, along the lines of, not for the first time, for the initial assessment. I may have even used the phrase axe murderer. I don't hold back on phrases like crusty and axe murderer and nearly dead.
No, very flagrant.
He's probably not an axe murderer, but just as our policy, I don't see new clients after 5 p.m. on a Friday. Lots of other reasons to do that. Like, what are you going to do if they're suicidal, for example? Anyway, believe it or not, and I made it clear, just for the first time. Later on, he can come at that time, no problem. So there was pushback on this. And this was more than one email. And this is not an issue that should ever be more than one email. And one of the things that I subsequently had to escalate about was, if I'm raped, you will have a lot of paperwork.
Wow, Gerri, that's rough, man.
Yeah, it is rough because
I
was sort of flagging, you need to at least pretend to care at this point.
We've got to slow this down.
Again,
because,
not getting the cliches I felt I deserved.
No. Because this is, okay, so so rape has now entered the room. We're talking about physical security risks for psychologists. It's becoming less symbolic, so it's harder for us to work out where the safety gates are getting breached here. But that is a very, very important scenario. And just to further illustrate this issue, I want to go one step deeper, because a psychologist was involved in that scenario with yourself, and I've got a similar one with a referral from another clinical psychologist, Gerri. I'm very dark on some clinical psychs. She sent me a client for group therapy, which was very dangerous and actually psychotic. But when we discussed the case, she just said that there was no risks in that department at all. And he managed to get through about a year and a half of therapy before having an absolute meltdown in the middle of the group. So I had a safety thing going on with her, and I said, okay, well, if anything does happen, we'll call you. And she didn't want to transfer treatment of his case to me entirely. She just wanted him to come for group therapy. So I bloody had to ring her, the absolute lunatic, the psychologist. And she, nowhere to be found, wouldn't pick up the phone, wouldn't respond, could not get her to respond to the client. Now, this kind of darkness between psychologists is very, very dangerous, and it's absolutely not acknowledged anywhere in our profession. And I'm talking about female-to-female bullying, where one woman is setting up another woman.
Well, this
very dark
is along the lines of problems. We've talked previously about complaints, but a serious problem can be an irreconcilable difference with a colleague.
Well, it's not that, though. Come on, let's talk. This is close to murder, an intention to murder, and it's not being acknowledged. It's not just a breakdown in a relationship. It's not just we've had a bit of a tiff. It's much darker than that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Somebody with a callous lack of for the safety of another person.
See, I can see you're going into the cognitive dissonance, and it's really hard to see it. And this is not a criticism. So you're trying to paint it nice.
No, I'm not trying to paint it nice. Yeah. I'm not trying to paint it nice at all.
No, okay.
I'm sorry. I'm not thinking of your scenario. I'm thinking of my own
fair
scenario.
Enough. Okay, no, that's
because
fine.
I was a contractor. I was working for a clinical psychologist, and I feel that there was callous disregard around safety.
I think it was pretty bloody obvious, Gerri, my darling psychologist colleague. I think that was just not on, and I think you're sort of what's the correct word for this? You're minimising the dangerous intention that was being directed towards you. And that's not a criticism. I understand why, because it puts you in a lot of conflict with, like, how could a colleague do this to me? Rah rah rah. Well, I don't know if you could think of the person in the situation as a colleague at this point. I think there's a woman who is doing something to you.
But you're also thinking that describes your own scenario.
I'm just illustrating. I'm using that story to try and illustrate what I think is going on here with you. And I think it's extremely hard to acknowledge, and it's very frightening. Because blind Freddie can tell you, blind Freddie knows 5 o'clock on a Friday night by yourself in a clinical practice seeing a male client you've never met before is dangerous.
But a receptionist doesn't know. And
it was a receptionist? Who sent you the client? Who was required?
The receptionist, yeah. So in the correspondence, I obviously copied in the madam, the principal.
But how did that scenario even come up?
Well, this is another situation. Is often we have admin people doing intake and making assessments, or not making assessments because they're not trained to do that. That's not even on their radar, about risk. their goal is to book people in because that's what the madam wants them to do.
Yeah, but the madam is overseeing the whole thing, surely.
Yes, and this brings me to another problem, which is a very live and very serious problem. Some people don't get this problem when I talk to other clin psychs in the outside world, but sometimes the admin staff are not handled well. And
you want to make it about that. You want it to be the admin staff's causing a problem. Is that right?
No, it's the responsibility of the madam, but sometimes the admin staff are rewarded for pleasing the madam. And because she pays their wages, they're the ones that she has to suck up to. And so the admin staff will then do things like, book people in at 5 o'clock because their concern is not you. It is not the practitioner, is not the safety. And they also do things like spy.
See, I'm seeing a lot of red.
Haven't we?
Yeah. There's a few red flags flying around here that I feel like you're wrestling with, though, and
I am wrestling with them, but it's not a live wrestle. It's not happening from the where past. I work at the moment.
It's dangerous, though. Can we feel the danger in the room? Can you feel the presence of a predator?
Yeah, there's
we're a bit
danger.
nervous.
Well, who is the predator? That's exactly right, isn't it?
It's a great question.
There could be a number of predators in the room.
Yeah, I know. But so there's a general sense of unsafety, right? We're not feeling safe about whatever the story is. There's an archetypal predator lurking nearby, and we can feel it. And we're trying to work out, where is this predator? Okay, it was in the past, it's not in the present. We're trying to reassure ourselves. We're like, okay, well, I'm safe now. But we're not totally convinced that we are safe. Well, I'm not.
Because predators can sneak in, right? Well, let's think about your scenario and my scenario.
Well, I've had that.
Predators can sneak in where people are not nice, where they're not taking care of each other.
Well, they're a bit malevolent.
Can also sneak in where there are not the systems in place, like a system or a policy. I could be being overly pro-bureaucratic here, but a simple policy of we do not see new people after 4 p.m. on a Friday could really have sorted a lot of stuff and made everybody feel a lot safer. And made everybody, in fact, be a lot safer.
Well, you're tempting me into having a problem-solving, solution-oriented, outcome-focused conversation about this. But I think it's actually much more in the realm of the unconscious. I think
it needs both. I think if the unconscious is sound, then the systems and the
so let's try and get precise.
Problem.
All right, let's get precise around what exactly is going wrong in the minds of the people that are allowing this to happen, Gerri. That's the key question.
They just don't care.
Well, maybe that's a superficial reading of it, but I like a lot more detail behind why don't they just care? Because you're talking about a lack of empathy to the degree that's, from a certain lens, looks a bit sociopathic. Like, that's quite a lot of I don't care. Well, what's actually going on here? Like, let's be more detailed about it. Like,
well, notice the referral, right? You're referring to, referring to is just the wrong verb to use.
Okay, referencing or...
Yeah, see, we can't even
now. Pointing to something. You've got the finger of flame out, and right.
Yeah, you were describing a situation where somebody made a referral to your group, right?
Well, who knows what the circumstances were around that, but anyway.
Often the underlying message to a referral is make this problem go away for me. So I think that's often the motivation.
No, she was more malevolent than that because she knew she'd been working with her client for 6 years. So she knew, and I don't know what exactly the circumstances of the referral was. She was came across as fairly okay when I took the intake from her. But I did ask, I asked significant questions about risks to safety for the other members of the group, for the client themselves, and for me. and what we would do if that occurred. And she was adamant that that was not a risk. And she claimed there was no prior charge history of assault or anything like that. And that turned out to be not true as well. Now, okay, I could have asked for a police check, I suppose, but then you're trying to build a rapport with a new client, and I interviewed them, and I spent about an hour with at least both people, and we agreed on how to handle the situation with both parties if things went pear-shaped. And in his defence, he was also there was certain vulnerability to him, and he was trying within his limits to do some recovery, and he did make it through 18 months, which was amazing. But then when he lost it, it was spectacular. And it was all the things that I was concerned about. Anyway, but I think my instinct was already telling me there was a problem there, and I didn't entirely listen to it. Never don't listen to your instinct. Forget about all the frameworks you've got. Your instinct is your best friend to protect your own safety.
Anyway, don't pretend to not see the red flags.
Well, but the thing is, Gerri, mentally ill people do have red flags. So it's about how do you respond to complexity and perform the duties that your vocation requires. So but I think this is it's a big tangle what we're trying to work out here. So we need something to focus on. Well, let's focus on your story, because I think it's probably got more juice in it because what I've introduced is terrifying. So we're not ready. We're not ready for that. But I want to just flag it as there is a level lower than the story that you're describing. It's not just carelessness. It's not just training errors. It's not just I don't care. There's something much darker underneath that. Much darker.
I overheard another conversation at my previous workplace, and this conversation was around do we get a duress? Am I saying that word correctly?
Yeah, duress button. Yeah, duress button. Yeah, a duress system. Yeah.
No, I think that the vision was something that you wear around your neck.
Yeah, it can be a little device with a button on it or some variation of that, and you hit it and an alarm goes off.
And the madam was talking to the admin person about this analogy sure has legs, because in brothels they do take security.
They do have
seriously.
Depending on how.
Cannot do it in private practice in psychology.
Well, there's many levels of prostitution, but yes, sure. If you're a licensed parlour, there are some security processes. That's true.
Yes, yes. How useful they are in every scenario. Anyway, sorry. So the madam was talking to the receptionist about another one of the employees another one of the workers who was seeing people after hours and was young and female, who, let's face it, that describes a huge amount of the psychology workforce in this country.
I know. It's really scary.
The madam was saying, should we get a duress, because is that cost going to be worth it if it's such a low incident risk?
Wow.
Just
one rape's okay, but maybe 10's worth the duress button. So on a cost-benefit analysis and outcome-focused, solution-oriented discussion, it just doesn't warrant the expense, Gerri. I mean, that's the reality. It's not hurting me, but it does cost the business. So, I think we can handle 1 or 2 rapes, maybe not 10. Maybe I'd have no sites then.
Yeah, and it's only ever going to be 1 or 2. Yeah.
First of all, anyone who thinks like that, I don't see how they can be like, oh, like what?
They're out there, Amy.
I think they're out there in force, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to talk to you about
what do you want to do about that
stuff today.
Yeah, okay, sure. this topic's trying to push through. So we've got to, if we don't pay attention to it, we've got to, it'll keep showing up in other forms. So we can talk about whatever if you want to park it and go on to other things. And then if it shows up again, we've got to note that and go, okay, it's still here. We haven't addressed it yet.
No, unfortunately, and this is not adequate. I'm not for one single second saying it's adequate, but market forces are going to, at the moment,
I love when you start talking about market. Yes.
In your market forces are going to sort this because people.
No, they won't, Gerri.
Because practices are desperate for workers. Apart from the almost dead, right? They need workers, and so the balance of supply and demand is shifting a little bit towards the practitioner, the contractor, being a rarer commodity.
That's your idea.
Okay. Yeah, at the moment and not forever. And I do have some evidence for this, albeit anecdotal, which is that the ads for workers are getting much more effusive. Before.
What does that mean? Yeah.
Well,
what does that
before
mean?
it used to be a massive list of criteria of what you needed to bring to the business, right?
Forget about it.
But now it's like 3 criteria.
like
3
breathing,
criteria and a massive
available,
list of what we can offer you.
Almost finished psychology.
So I really think you can see this. Like, jump on Psych Exchange.
I don't think market forces, as you say, are going to have any impact on this at all. It's got nothing. I don't think it's got anything to do with market forces, as you say. I also don't think your perception of demand. I don't know if it's as real as you think it is. I know there's a lot of information in the media to suggest it is, but there's a bigger mental health workforce than just psychologists. There's social workers, psychotherapists. There's options. It's not just about psychology. They can go elsewhere. People can find support elsewhere. I don't think that demand you perceive is actually saying, right, finally listen to us. I don't think it's as simple as that. I just don't think it is.
I think you could well be right. I think we're both right. I think it is there as a phenomenon, but I do agree with you. It's not enough. It's not enough to get people to actually take care of each other in terms of basic safety.
Well, there's a conflict between how you want to run a business and in some areas what good practice looks like. They don't easily gel together. You've got to actually think that through quite deeply. And it's too easy for an employer to just exploit the persons that are working. And there's a reason why you use working girls as an analogy for psychology, is because there's a lot of truth to it. So you got to work out what's that dynamic actually describing. Why is it a valuable metaphor? Why is it sort of funny? What is the truth in that we're laughing at?
Yes.
And why are we bloody laughing, more importantly? Like, it's not, potentially, when you look at it in the cold light of day, it's not that funny.
Yes. Yeah, it is really true. Yeah.
And also, why, I can see the analogy, but I think there's 2 ways to practice psychology. You can allow yourself to be exploited like a working girl, potentially. And I've worked with lots of women who've been in the oldest profession in the world, and at times the transference needed a lot of work because their work is really hard. It's also very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and it's also something you can't quite grow out of, even if no one knows about your past. It's something that you sort of carry with you. So I think working out why are we comparing psychology to prostitution is really, it's important. There's a darkness there that is hard to unpack. And I think you need psychoanalysis and psychodynamic theory to unpack what the hell's going on there.
Yes.
I just don't think there's another paradigm that explains it. You can't really leave it at the level of solutions and get to an outcome, because it will keep recreating itself.
I think metaphor is valuable in many kinds of therapy. I, in fact, have a book, this probably doesn't surprise you, called Metaphors in CBT, or Metaphorical Work in CBT. And a metaphor allows you to build a bridge between something you understand, something you don't quite understand. I think I just said what you said in different words.
Yeah,
actually.
I agree with you. That's why you need it. So you can take it from you can make it symbolic, so you can talk about it, take it out of the unconscious.
Yes, and just to be a bit more concrete, I just do want to say we do respect sex workers and realise that they do have it hard.
It's tough work. It's really dangerous
sitting in a
job.
chair and talking to someone and doing a psychological treatment is not as difficult. We are merely using this as a metaphor, as an analogy. An English teacher would know the difference between those two terms, but I don't, alas. So that's not to say that work is not harder. I just want to.
Oh, it's complicated. It's like every new client is an encounter. It's scary. There's street prostitution in particular is very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. And I don't think, sex work is it's complicated. Maybe we need a whole hour to talk about sex work. Maybe.
We've gone maybe
off track,
45 seconds without a book recommendation here.
Okay, so you're feeling more comfortable. That's what that tells me. You're feeling safer, Gerri. We've named it now. You don't have to go to the bookshelf. Okay.
No, I've just got a really excellent one.
Okay, right.
I've got a really excellent book recommendation. I cannot help myself in.
Okay, all right, off you go.
In My Skin by Kate Holden.
I think I've got that book.
It is a memoir.
Yeah.
It is a memoir of somebody and her somebody. Kate Holden is now an author, married to Tim Flannery, Australia's leading environmentalist.
Woo!
So everyone's got a happy ending there. No pun intended.
Oh no, Gerri.
But I mean that book it's a memoir.
Yeah.
It is not but that book taught me a lot and is actually really, really valuable, really well written. Recommend it to everyone.
Kate. Well done.
Sorry. Sorry,
yeah, I'm just we're having that.
If anybody is interested in that particular area,
Gerri's just offering books. She's trying to help, and I think, Gerri, what I think you do with the book is when you're feeling a little bit nervy, a bit like maybe I'm not quite on my front foot, I'll just get to the bookshelf and we'll just see what we can get, and then we'll help. That the books help you. I think they help. Yeah, they're part of the process, aren't they?
Yeah. When we seek to understand something.
Yes.
Sometimes we need something that's out of our own experience or mirrors our own experience, which brings me to something that is so epic.
Okay. Oh God.
I think it could blow your mind.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm in the chair. I'm in the yellow chair, like Paddington.
Where is the book on psychology in Australia? I mean,
Gerri, perhaps it's in the potential, the morphogenetic field in the dream time. It's going to come forward as we collapse the potential in an observation. You'll have to write it. You'll have to finish that though, right? You've got to start and keep going until it's finished.
You're probably right in doubting my capacity to finish things.
Gerri,
but I think probably Michael Gross is already writing it.
Yeah, no, you could write. Why not? Why can't you write a book on that? You've got some experience. That's all you need, right? You've got some views, got some ideas. Get it in a book. Why not pipe up? Share your thoughts. That's what we're doing on the podcast. We've got about 100 loyal listeners. Thank you, everyone. We're not breaking the fourth wall, but anyway, and just we appreciate your attention in our journey. But anyway, Gerri, you could write that book. Why not? Why don't you have a crack?
You could write that book as well.
I'm tired. I'm very tired.
Are you almost dead though?
Yeah, I'm sort of
as being almost dead
in your interview. I love that you've cracked that. So you thought not too comfortable. They probably did a really good job making you feel comfortable, and then you've thought, I'll just share my inner world. That's what you do to build rapport. And then it's gone a bit long, hasn't it? It's gone a bit old.
Even referring to yourself as late career is not helpful.
Yeah, as opposed to experienced practitioner. Oh dear, it's all about the language, isn't it? It's all about the language.
Yes.
Oh, bless you.
Hey, Emmy, there's something else that went down, which does illustrate the whole late career thing. This was the first time I've taken my date of birth off my CV.
Oh, shit. Oh, really? God, I did that ages ago. Wow.
Did you?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I can't remember actually. Well, I've been working for myself for a while now, so I haven't needed to. Yeah. Right. You took it off. Good. Well, that's progress, isn't it?
Do you think so? Do you think it's progress, or do you think it's hiding? Do you think I was born
here we go.
in 1970? So shouldn't I have my date of birth there, which really says, "Hey, I know what a Chico roll is." I ate rum and raisin ice cream as a child.
Did you? That stuff was dreadful even then. There was too much brandy in it usually. Okay.
Not in Queensland.
Oh, no. There was not enough of anything in Queensland. Oh, dear. Okay. Well, look, I think it's okay to take your date of birth, Gerri. Frankly, I don't think people really mind about that, do they? Do they really mind? I suppose if you mention the late career decade, that's giving people some clues. I don't think. Do they really care? Do they care?
Well, I was speaking to someone wise, and she thinks that she was rejected by jobs. It was in a different industry.
Oh, right, okay.
Because
of age.
Her age. And I said, well, did you have your date of birth on your CV? And she said that she thought people could tell by things like the years you were at uni and stuff like that.
Probably. I would say you probably
so
could
they can kind of work out a ballpark there. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out what brand of neurosis we've landed in here. Gerri, what are you present to exactly? Like, what, I mean, I know we're not super focused in this session. We've been meandering all over the countryside. What is give us your next scenario? Maybe that what do your notes say? You got something ready? What have you got there?
My next scenario. There's a couple of directions we can take that we can take in the future.
Let's plow on. Let's just plow on. All right. Off we go.
Miss Emmy, I do have to note that you're a business owner.
I am. I bloody am.
Are you a madam?
I was going to be a madam
you're a
for a bit.
trader, is that?
But I'm a sole trader at the minute. I was going to be a madam, but then I unfortunately became unwell to the degree that I couldn't really manage more people. So I rounded up some of my students, and bless them, I wanted to give them everything they wanted. I just wasn't able to afford them. Look, I think the private practice model where you start farming out your work, it is inherently not a brilliant model. It's not suited to a salary, and that's a bit of a shock for your student psychologist. It's like, what? I'm ready to earn big bucks. I've trained. Come on. And it's a bit of a downer when you've realised that you're going to get a fee per hour. So most psychologists that I am aware of, not myself, sort of work for an organisation some of the time, and then they do a bit of private practice after hours. A couple of hours here and there, maybe a day. But the ones that actually work like I do, and you can easily kill yourself just doing too much work. It's really, and luckily I had a health condition which prevented me from going beyond an absolutely strict limit each week. So I had to work within a limitation, and I make it work that way. So I just became more creative about how to generate an income. But if you're running a business, I had to think quite deeply about how to make the business practice align with the practice. And I've got that going now with a clearly articulated shared responsibility between myself and clients. I'd love to offer some other people work, and students do ask for work here and there, but it's tricky. It's tricky to manage, It
is tricky because one thing that I really have a yearning to talk to you about, which is connected to all of this. It's connected to feeling safe. It's connected to dealing with external problems. It's connected to dealing with problems with the client. Not problems is the wrong word. I should say challenges. It's supervision. And supervision is brought out as the antidote to all of that I think supervision is another huge conversation itself. How do you trust your supervisor? Can your supervisor be your madam? You know, all of those things.
Oh, God, no, you can't do that. See, the thing in private practice, when you're doing the farming out model, so you're sharing your work with other practitioners, after a very short period of time, that client becomes their client and they form a therapeutic alliance. And theoretically, if that psychologist went on, and this has happened to me, the clients will go with them. And I've got clients I've met, 20 years ago in another job who come and go because of the various issues in their life. So they form a real attachment to you, and that needs to be considered as part of the practice model, that you're not really an employee, you're an autonomous practitioner. And I think it's quite hard to work out, well, who is responsible? Well, the psychologist is responsible, the psychologist, not the practice.
And I would also say, from the point of view of the contractor, one of the things that's in my head, which I think is a reasonable thing to have in my head, I'm taking it out of my head now, is what am I getting for my 40%?
Oh, God, is that all you were getting? See,
for my 40%, I do want to be buffered a little from problems.
Geez, Gerri, I managed to negotiate my way up to 70% in private practice, which is a bit of a cheeky negotiation. But I said, well, if you're going to put me on after hours, then I can walk away. I can get more money. Like 40% is not good, mate. I
think it's really good.
Do you? Well, then I went.
I get 60%. They get 40%. Okay. So I'm saying.
Sorry, the other way around.
Dude,
so we've got to fix that.
Yeah, so I'm saying
that's 40% that's not too bad.
What do I get for that? If you know what I mean.
Okay, I'm with you. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Did that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm paying 40%. I'm obviously getting the room. I'm getting admin support, but what am I getting? And the ads are starting to have that approach, which is, in general, I feel is good, although I hear what you're saying as well, that it is not addressing more profound issues.
Jerry's giving me the wind up here. Is what we're getting. Righto. Well, we've got to think about summary. We'll be walking around something. We're calling it, what are we called? What would Dilbert call it? He'd call it something to do with workers' needs, I suppose. But it's actually more therapeutic than that. I think we haven't quite named the therapeutic dynamics here, G. I don't know if we're ready. Maybe we're not ready to do it. We're not ready, probably. We're not ready. All right, we've identified some danger zones, and we've sort of had a bit of a look through the keyhole at them. And we haven't really got any conclusions yet.
Troubling, I guess, is how many stories like that are out there.
Yeah.
I've managed to generate, 3? You've managed to generate a couple. And that's just us.
Let me end on a really terrifying note. Instead of cuddling up to bed, we're in my very early career, when I was in my early 20s. I was part of a psychotherapy training program in my secret city, and there was another training psychologist in there, and she was registered and went to work in private practice in her home, and she was murdered.
Whoa.
And when that happened, I was like, what the hell am I doing? What the hell am I doing? What the hell? I had no idea that could happen. So this is real. It's not just sugar and fairy floss. Like, it's just, there's some. I think I was really pleased. I went to work in a statutory service long before I went out on my own, because I think you really do need to know the spectrum. Freud talked about mental illness as mad, sad, and bad, and you need to understand the bad. Like, what is the bad? What are we talking about here?
Yes.
Anyway. And we'll unpack that as we go forward in the caravan of excitement that is GLOP. We'll figure it out slowly.
And I would even suggest that your state government services, they don't care about you emotionally, but they do tend to care about you physically.
That's important. That's not always the case. That's not because I think that bad category of mental health that categorized by Freud is really, it's very difficult to understand. It's really, that's why I think we're in the process as a community of understanding what to do about mental health, and we're getting there, but we're not there yet. Short-term notes: you must be responsible for your own safety. Do not cross a boundary that you can. Do not cross something your instinct is saying is dangerous. Listen to your instinct. Like, if you're not feeling safe, don't do it. Just don't do it.
Yes, it's an early warning sign. Lock the door. Ask about after-hours procedures. Listen when somebody tells you who they are. So listen if they tell you they don't care about after-hour safety procedures.
Don't do a home visit if you don't feel safe.
Ever.
Just don't do it.
Yes.
Yeah. We're becoming very authoritarian in our attempts to secure safety. Gerri, next time we meet, we've got to talk about the therapeutic dynamics behind this stuff. We're going to go back to the personal. We've got to go back to the personal. Let's we've got to back off the solution focus for a minute, disentangle your fingers from the grip around books, and just have a look at the feelings. Well, just quietly. You can pick them up later. Just have a little rest from them
a little.
You just can you can frisk them a little bit later. Yeah, just finger them, the lettering and the booking, the cover. Anyway, we can't escape it. All right, what else? That's it. That's it for this time, isn't it? That's it.
Yes.
All right.
May all your reading be useful and solution focused.
Oh, Gerri. With that clinical psych blessing, we'll say goodbye. Bye for now. Bye.